So assumption number one, you want to make sure you already apply for the educational GitHub account for your lab work. And that means you are able to create a private repository for your CS1021 workspace. And you also have cloned to your computer desktop by using either the command line or the GitHub desktop application. If you have doubts about any of these three assumptions, you can refer to the tutorial series about how you can apply and manipulate the GitHub account. Make sure you do that before you start a current tutorial series. Okay, so this is your online GitHub account, and also make sure you also run the command line, for example, to actually clone your GitHub. I assume you have done that already. So now on my desktop, I already have this particular folder called ECS1021 Lab Workspace, for example, that is cloned from my GitHub account, educational one. Okay, so I'm gonna leave this as a workspace for my Eclipse, and I'll do all the developments for the rest of the tutorial series from this folder. Okay, so now what I want you to do, so let's minimize the command line and also minimize the web browser. We don't need that anymore. Okay, so now I want you to launch the Eclipse that I also assume you have already installed. Okay, launch Eclipse over here, and you may have to change the default workspace over here. So make sure you browse. For example, you can say browse, and then you can choose your desktop, and then under ECS1021 Lab Workspace, and choose that. If you follow the previous tutorial series, we already have a Java project called Hello World, but you don't have to worry about it for now. We're going to create something from scratch. Okay, so we're going to open this particular workspace for the rest of the tutorial and make sure this path is exactly over there. Okay, and then you'll say launch. Okay, it will take maybe a little bit longer for the very first time, but let's wait for that. Okay, it's done. So let's maximize the window over here. I'll show you some other tips about using Eclipse in later tutorial video, but for the current one, let's focus on the very basics to get you started. Okay, if you see the workbench, you can just click on play over here. So to get started, otherwise you can read the tips on your own. Okay, click on workbench over here. So now currently it is simply just empty. Okay, so let's create a new project from scratch. So you can think about every time if you want to do something new for a particular task or for a particular lab, you can simply just create a single project. So a single project may contain as many packages as you like. Package in Java is like folder. And then under each package, you can have as many Java classes as you like. Java classes are like files. Okay, let's illustrate the ideas very quickly. Okay, so now you can think about, let me just add a new page over here to illustrate the three concepts I just talked about. Okay, so now you can think about the top level is your workspace. Okay, like the folder I just created I just cloned from my GitHub accounts. And then, for example, it's the EECS1021 lab workspace. Okay, that's the one I just cloned. Okay, under the workspace, once we open this workspace by using Eclipse, you can create as many Java projects as you like. Okay, so we have Java projects. And under each Java project, we got as many packages as you like. If you simply don't want to create any packages, Eclipse will still create a default package for you. Okay, we'll talk about package a little bit later. Okay, also you got packages. And this is very similar to the idea about folder, okay, in your normal file system. Okay, under each package, you can have as many Java classes as you like. Java class 1, class 2, class 3, as you will see in my illustration a little bit later in the tutorial video. Okay, so these are similar to file. Okay, so these are the different levels of concept you want to keep in mind. This is the very basic you want to keep in mind. Okay, we got workspace, we got projects, we got package, and we got Java class. Of course, under each Java class, you may have to declare different programming construct, which we'll go through throughout the tutorial series. Okay, so now let's go back to our Eclipse over here, and then we'll create a new project. Okay, the way to do it is by go to File and go to New, and then Java project. You want to make sure you choose Java project. Again, if you don't see it, you can simply go to Other over here, and then you can search for example, Java projects, and then you will also see this option here. Okay, depends on which version of Eclipse you're using, but you can always go to other and search for that. This option will always work. Okay, click on next. And now we have to choose a name of the projects. So here is the naming convention for Java projects. If you have different words, you cannot separate it by space. They have to be combined together without any spaces. Okay, so it's so-called compound word. So what we can do is, for example, now we are doing lab 0 part 1. For example, we can say lab 0 part 1 over here. Okay, so now this is satisfying the naming convention. You wouldn't say like a lab 0 and then part 1. So this is simply not legal because you cannot have white spaces between the project name. Okay, and then you have to always capitalize the very first for each word and combine them together. It's called the compound word. Okay, lab 0 and part 1. Okay, that's what we have. And you don't have to worry about other stuff. Keep them as default. And you will say finish over here. So this is our project over here. If you simply go into your desktop and then have a look at here, now we have exactly this folder for the projects. And again, you will have one folder called bin, and you have one folder called source. The bin simply store the Java bytecode, which you don't have to worry ever. Okay, just don't worry about it. And for the source, this is going to, at the moment, it's simply just empty. It's going to contain all the Java classes you're going to store over here. Each Java class, as I said before, is going to be a file. And by the way, it's really important to note, for each Java class is going to be a file, some name of the extension .java. Okay, I will illustrate it to you a little bit later. Okay, it's just going to be a file with a special extension, so you'll be recognized by Eclipse. Okay, let's go back here, and then let's now go to create a new class. Okay, let's create our very first class. Okay, for the very first class, I just want to show you how you can create a main method and try to really produce some outputs to the console, and then try to understand the word called sequential composition. Okay, also notice this, how the semicolons can be used for sequential composition. Okay, the very first one. Okay, what I will do is go to the source, click on the source folder here, right click, and then go for new, and then go for class. Okay, and then over here you have to give a name for the class. Again, the naming convention for Java class is like the naming convention for the projects. You have to start with every word in the compound word has to be capitalized. Okay, with no spaces. Okay, for example, over here we can say simply simple outputs, for example, right? And now you have two options over here. If you simply just want to do something to the console simply means it's actually going to be output panel on the Eclipse, which for most of the time in the lab session, we'll actually focus on the console for the Eclipse. Okay, so now we can either choose this box over here, which means it is going to generate a particular method for you, which is called the main. Okay, as far as the lab session is concerned for now, because you're only beginning to learn about Java, think about the main method is going to be the main entrance point for the Java runtime to actually execute your code. Okay, so now what we will do is you can either choose this or don't choose it. Okay, let's say we choose it. Okay, and then you can say finish. Okay, so what we got over here, and this seems to be a little bit too small. So let me also show you at the same time how you can adjust the font size for your Java file. Okay, so what you can do is go to Eclipse and go to Preferences. Okay, so now you can type in the search bar simply font. Okay, so you can see under General, under Appearance, under Colors and Fonts, click on that, and then open Java over here. Okay, let me just make it a little bit bigger for you. So under Java over here, go to Java Editor Text Font. Okay, so over here you can choose whatever font, face, or whatever font size you like. For example, I can simply double click on that, and then I'll simply make it for you to read. Let's say 18. Okay, once I choose that, I can say apply. You can see at the background it is changed. Okay, let me do one more thing, which is also necessary. Can you also go under debug and also choose for console font. So this console is the word I just mentioned. This is going to be the main output channel for us to see the effects for our Java programs. Of course, we also will see how the programming effects can be visualized on the hardware, but the main point about this course being a programming course is to see the programming effects on the console. Okay, so now let's double click on that. And now let's be consistent, we also choose 18. Okay, so two fonts to change. One is about the Java editor and the other one is about the console. Okay, apply, and then you can say apply and close. Okay, we haven't seen the console yet, but we'll see that in just a moment. Okay, so now, we have one class over here and we also have a main method. Okay, let me document this for you. Okay, so up to now, you can see that we have something called class, we got something called public, static, void, and also what's this really, right? So I would say all these up to now is something that for the moment you can just take it for granted. So it will always be given, or you can simply generate them like what I just showed you in Eclipse. You don't have to memorize them. Okay, all you need to know is for this particular main method over here, I'll document it for you. Every time you want to document your Java class, this is what you can do. You can just say // and whatever you write over here is not going to be read by the computer. It's so-called comments you can write. Okay, this is only for documentation purpose. Okay, I would say the main method is the entry point of runtime execution, which means when you want to execute your program, the first line of the main method, which we're just about to fill in line number 6. So it's going to execute line by line from top to down. Okay, and then so that's the entry point of runtime execution. Okay, so now for now you will always start from the first line of the main method like this. Okay, so now how do we write some program to begin with? Okay, so now the easiest way is, let's say, of course, you can read some input from the user, or you can generate some output to the user. We'll talk about how you can read input from the user in the later video. But now, let's see how we can output. So for the output, this is a line you can also take it for granted. Okay, but you don't have to memorize. It will always be given to you as a hint. Okay, so you're gonna say system dot, and it's going to give you a menu of choice. You can system.out dot print line. Okay, I would say system.out print line. You will use this for just so many times, throughout the course. So eventually, you might just memorize it naturally. You don't have to memorize on purpose, but eventually you get used to it. Okay, so every time when you got system.out print line, that means you want to print something to the console. Okay, we will see what the console look like in just a moment. It's completely integrated with the Eclipse. Okay. So now system.out print line, and we want to print something over here, right? We'll talk about what you can really put inside this particular inside the print line. So whatever you can see that there's an opening parenthesis and there's also a closing parenthesis. Between these this pair of parentheses, you can put some stuff over there, and whatever you put inside there, it can be printed out to the console. Okay, the easiest way is to put a string, and we'll talk about string in more details a little bit later. So now I can simply say hello, let's say hello EECS 1021. Okay, let's see what's going to happen. Okay, now how do we execute the program? Of course, you can also, okay, one thing to note, it is really important that it's a very common mistake. Sometimes you might accidentally delete any of the curly brackets. They should always be a pair. Okay, you can see that this particular opening curly brackets matches this one here in line number 8. And this particular opening curly brackets also matches this closing one in line number 7. Okay, and also you can see this opening parenthesis also matches the closing parenthesis over here, right? Anytime it's a very common syntax error. If you, for example, if you accidentally missed this one here, it's going to tell you you have an error. You can see under problems panel over here, you have an error. And then it will tell you that you have some syntax error. Eclipse, if it suggests how you may fix your program, you simply say insert the closing parenthesis to complete the expression. That is one of the common mistake. Okay, let me undo this. Okay, another one could be maybe accidentally you deleted this particular closing bracket. You can see that that's also breaking the symmetry, right? You can see that we have the opening curly brackets, but we don't have the closing one. So that's also an issue. Okay, so this is number one you have to remember always when you write your Java class. Okay, so now let's see how. So far we are just let me just show you this. So far we are only in the compilation stage. Compilation stage of the program, which means we are just writing the program. Okay, we are only writing the program. We haven't really seen exactly how the program, when executed, how would it behave. Okay, that's something called the execution stage. Or sometimes people just call it runtime. So these are actually two very important stages that you have to distinguish between. One is called compilation, which means while I'm writing the code, and also when I execute the code, if they actually can compile. Okay, so now we'll actually reinforce these concepts, throughout the course. So let's just make sure you, at least you can recognize these terms and get an intuition about how what they really mean. Okay, so now we are still in compilation. Let's now execute it. Okay, so what you can do, so you can one principle you have to remember. Okay, let me write it down for you. Okay, let me see over here. You can only execute a Java class with the main method. With the main method. It is really important. Okay, so whenever you want to see the effects of certain Java classes, you want to make sure it does have the main method, which we did create for the main method. Okay, it's really important as a principle. If I simply created one class but without this particular main method, it cannot be executed. Okay, so now since it has a main method, let's execute it. So you can simply right click on this particular class. You would say run as Java application. So what we will see is you can see there's something called the console over here, and then it simply show you this is the effects of executing your Java code that I just compiled over here, right? I compiled a program that is valid, and then I run it as a Java application, and this is the effects I see in the console, right? This is really the workflow you have to get used to throughout the course. Always you try to compile your program over here, okay, to your satisfaction, make sure it's valid, and then you can execute the program over here as Java application, and whatever effect it might be, it will show over here in the console. Okay, and the moment we simply have hello EECS 1021. Okay, it's only one line. So now what I want to do is I want to create a slightly different program. Rather than printing just one line over here, I want to say hello EECS 1021, and after that I want to say this is now winter 2019. Okay, so now where should I put that line? Obviously I have two possible choices. Okay, I have choice number one. I can either put this is now winter 2019 before the line I just put, or I can put this line over here after that to say this is now winter 2019. So which option should I choose? Option number one or option number two? Okay, I can tell you that it should be option number two. Okay, let's see. Okay, so now we can simply just type everything. Every time you want to type a new line, system.out.println. Okay, you can say now is winter 2019. Okay, this is one version over here. Let's see. And then, so once you actually execute a particular Java class already, Eclipse will actually remember that. So now you can simply just move your mouse over the play button over here. There was a run simple output. Can you see that? Okay, run simple output. You can see the mouse if you move the mouse over. So you can see simple output is exactly this class over here. If you say run, it's going to execute the main method. So I can click on that. So now you can see that hello EECS 1021, and now is winter 2019. Okay, hopefully you can see that. Now I have a question for you. What if I moved this line over here rather than after I moved it before. Do you think? So now the program is actually okay. Okay. Now what if I simply just execute a program again? Are we going to get the same runtime behavior? Yes or no? The answer is no. But why? Okay, let's verify that indeed. Let's experiment to make sure we can really observe the reality that the program behavior is going to change, and then I will explain some important concept to you. Okay, so now what I will do is I will simply just re-execute the program, and then I will simply say execute. So you can see that it's a different behavior now. Now we will say now is winter 2019 and hello EECS 1021. Okay, it's basically the reverse order. So why are we getting a different outputs at the runtime? Okay, this has something to do with something called sequential composition, which I'm going to explain now. Okay, so now one more thing to notice. There is a semicolon over here at the end of the this line over here. There's also a semicolon over here at the end of this line. What if I got rid of it? Okay, you can see that if I got rid of it, pretty much like how I got rid of the closing curly brackets. Now, I want you to pay very careful attention to this because this will influence how you perform in your future lab test. Okay, so now as soon as I did that, so there are three places where indicated there's some errors in your code, so it cannot be compiled. Number one, you can see around this place over here, there's some red underline over here, right? If you move your mouse over, it tells you syntax error. Okay, it also tells you how you can fix it. Okay, place number one. Place number two, right to the right around line number 7, there's a cross mark over here, which also tells you the same syntax error. Okay, that's indicator number 2. Indicator number 3. You can see that the tab over here for this particular class also give you a red underline, cross over here. It also tells you there's something wrong with this particular class. But where exactly? It tells you it is this line. And then where exactly in this line? It is exactly over here. Okay, so you can see that every time you see anything that's red, either red cross or red underline in Eclipse, that means your program has some errors, and you as a programmer is totally responsible for any errors you produced at the compile time. Okay, so anytime you see the red cross or red underline, you should really pause your developments for the Java code immediately, and then fix it before there's no red underline or no red cross over here. Okay, in your future lab test, we will have a stringent requirements for you because we really want you to become a good programmer. If you submit any code that has some error, for example, like a red cross on your file, you will receive very low marks, if not 0. Okay, so that's something I want to make it very clear to you about the expectation for this course. We really want you to become a good programmer, competent programmer, especially. Okay, so now let me fix this error here. So I put a semicolon. I'll put a semicolon at the end, and then so now you can see all the errors has gone away. So that means now I'm okay. I'm fine. Okay, so now after the semicolon, let me explain something to you very quickly. Okay, so now let me switch to the next page over here. Let's now talk about some concept over here. So basically, we talk about the main method over here is the entry point for execution. So this is a term that we'll keep mentioning as well in the class. It's something called sequential composition of programming statements. So if you only look at this phrase, it simply means we're going to put a sequence of programming statements. We're going to put one programming statement after another. And what would be the type of programming statements we have to learn in this course? Quite many, actually. So now the only programming statement we have seen is the print statements. That's the simplest one you can have. It's a print statements. Okay, so what I will do is I will simply add it here. The first one we just learned is the print statements. Okay, later video we're gonna learn about how you can do assignments. Okay, how you can do if then else conditional statements, and also how you can do loops for iterative statements. So these 3 are the main building blocks for any. Once you learn about these 3 particular statements, you can write very powerful and expressive programs. But we'll do one bit by one bit. Okay, so only focus on print statement for this current video. So now we talk about basically the difference between compile time and also between the runtime. So at the compile time, which means you're writing the program, you should always separate each statement by a semicolon, right? For example, you can see that after this particular print statement over here, we have a semicolon. And then after this second print statement there, we also follow that by a semicolon. Okay, so overall, abstractly speaking, you can think about for your particular program, all your program will look something like this. Okay, so basically you have some main method, okay, over here, and some main method here, and then opening curly brackets, closing curly brackets, right? And now you may have as many lines as you like. So some line over here, second line, third line, fourth line, okay, as many lines as you like. And now at the runtime, how exactly is Java execution machine going to run your program? Okay, here is the principle. Okay, the principle is very straightforward and intuitive. So from top to bottom, one line is executed after another. Okay, which means overall it's going to starting from the first line over here, execute this line first, the first line. At the end of that, we're going to go to the second line and then execute it. Okay, at the end of that, we're going to execute the next line and so on. Okay, we're going to go from one line after another from top to bottom. That's the so-called sequential execution of your program. Okay, so that is really important for you to bear this in mind. Okay, so at the compile time, we do semicolon to separate between statements. Okay, at the runtime, we're going to execute one line after another. Okay, like that in this order. Okay, this is from top to bottom. It's really important for you to understand this principle here. It's the very basic. Okay, after this, we're going to, let's see. So in this tutorial video, we show you quite a bit of stuff. We show you how you can create a new project, how you can create a new class with a main method, and the main method is the entry point of execution for your runtime execution. And then we show you where you can how to do the sequential composition of the print statements. Each print statement is going to correspond to a line to the console over here. Okay, you have a console over here, and then you can also rearrange the order of the statement so it will be printed differently, simply because at the runtime it's going to be from top to bottom and then one line after another. Okay, that's a principle you want to get used to before you move on to the next video.